My name is Felix Padron. I'm the director of the Office of Cultural Affairs, and it gives me great pleasure. Thank you. It really gives me great pleasure to have you here tonight for this really wonderful occasion. And I will say it, Mayor, I don't think this has nothing to do with free parking Tuesdays on downtown. Carmen really did it on her own, so just wanted to add that. You know, let me just start by saying that San Antonio is really the new face of the American dream. As Mayor Castro has boldly stated on several occasions, but also San Antonio is where arts run deep in our hearts. I think tonight's ceremony is evidence of both of these really wonderful and deep statements. I want to congratulate all of you for being in attendance for this historical occasion and for supporting this long-awaited initiative. As many of you know, April is National Poetry Month, and what better way to celebrate than appointing San Antonio's first Poet Laureate, Dr. Carmen Tafolla. You know, before I say anything, I really, let me give some thank yous to, and I want to begin by acknowledging the vast team of folks who made this initiative, this selection, and this evening possible. I would first like to thank, obviously, the mayor for his leadership and support, and to point out the two vision areas of SA 2020, one of which is arts and culture as well as education, which help, really in my mind, help shape and make the Poet Laureate initiative a reality. I would also like to thank the mayor's staff and my staff. I know Sebastian is around, who really wonderfully coordinated with the mayor's staff and working throughout this process. There has been other elected officials who have been part of this initiative and who are in attendance tonight. And I think Senator Leticia Van de Pew may be here. I'm not sure if she's here, but I do point her out because she was one of 5 individuals who actually nominated Carmen for this honor. So we're very appreciate that. The Poet Laureate Selection Committee, which was comprised of 4 poets from across the country, I really want to give my deep thanks to them. I want to thank, obviously, Rosemary Catakalos for really, really working with us and navigating and helping us shape this process for us. Thank you, Rose. I know you're in the back. Thank you. And I also want to thank, obviously, the Gemini Inc. staff and the board members. I also want to thank the 16 de Septiembre Commission for really partnering with us, and the San Antonio Public Library board members. Obviously, the group that is really key to us and advisory to the Office of Cultural Affairs, which is the Cultural Arts Board. There are a number of members here present. Thank you for your support and helping us with this. And then more importantly, I want to thank the literary community, nominees, and those who took the time to nominate the poets. And finally, thank you to all of you, the San Antonio community, for embracing this initiative, and you being here really is a sign of that. As the 19th century American poet Walt Whitman once said, quote, to have great poets, there must be great audiences too. And we believe that Dr. Tafolla has a great audience if tonight attendance is any indication. Many of you may remember, but it is important to recognize that the initial Poet Laureate conversation really began in 2005 when then Councilwoman Patty Radel inquired with the Office of Cultural Affairs about the idea of establishing a Poet Laureate initiative. And obviously after she had and presented the idea by the late local Chicano community poet Trinidad Sanchez, who passed away in 2006. And I really wanted to point that out because he was a great poet. And he's the one who really planted the seed back then to start this initiative. It was at that point that we began our research of other cities and states' poet laureate programs. And with that leadership and with the leadership of Mayor Julian Castro, we were able to bring this initiative to a reality. Thank you, Mayor Castro, for taking a great interest in this project and for making literacy and education a priority for the San Antonio community. Thank you. It is a known fact that the state of Texas named its first poet laureate in 1932. However, today, San Antonio becomes the first major city in Texas to appoint its own poet laureate. And obviously, with this appointment, we joined the ranks of other cities across the nation, and we expect other cities in Texas to follow us and follow us in suit. In San Antonio, we recognize that poetry plays a significant role in the culture of our city as well in the education of our population. A quote from poet Audre Lorde, who, by the way, was the poet laureate in New York City from 1991 to 92, captures the power of the written word when she said, quote, "Poetry is not only dream and vision, it is the skeleton architecture of our lives. It lays the foundations for future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before." We believe that our poet laureate, Carmen, will carry the same message throughout her 2-year term, and she will bridge and bring to the forefront the necessity to promote literacy, poetic art, and literature. Nelson Mandela once said, "A good head, good heart are always a formidable combination, but when you add to that a literature tongue of pen, then you have something very special." And we know that Carmen Tafolla has a good head, a good heart, and most definitely a literate tongue and pen. I think San Antonio has something very special tonight. Renowned author Alex Haley even called her a world-class writer, and Ana Castillo called her a pioneer of Chicano literature. Dr. Carmen Tafolla was nominated for 5 individuals of this honor among a total of 21 nominations. Her leadership with the community is one that spans all ages, ethnicities, and creeds, and her family history in San Antonio goes back several generations, and Carmen herself was raised on the west side of San Antonio. In much of her poetry, we will notice she is a master of code switching, which is the skill of altering between formal and colloquial Spanish and English as a literary technique. She believes strongly that a multicultural dual language education is one of the greatest gifts we can provide our children, and that effective family literacy is heavily dependent on the availability of stories and literature to which people can relate culturally and realistically. I can't say any much more than that. I know the mayor has to, will say a couple of added more remarks, but I will tell you that I am honored and am very pleased that Carmen Tafolla has been selected as the poet laureate. She is really hecho aquí en San Antonio. So with that, to make it official, I will ask our good, honorable mayor to come and join me here to say a couple of words and to proceed over the honors of making the official poet laureate standing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. And good evening. Are y'all ready to make history here in San Antonio? Well, first of all, thank you, Felix, to you and to the Office of Cultural Affairs for your wonderful leadership in implementing a great process for the selection of our Poet Laureate and also in fostering the dream that Patty Radel and Trinidad Sanchez first brought to the city. So let's give them a big round of applause for all their work. I also want to thank Sarah McCornan from my staff for her work on this. She worked with their staff, and so thank you very much, Sarah, for your work. Well, as you know, I grew up with a mother who couldn't stop writing poems. My brother Joaquin and I, on several occasions when we were teenagers, no less, were dragged to poetry readings. The Black Hat poems of Jose Montalvo and Trinidad Sanchez and folks from throughout our community who really showed us all that poetry truly is a blessing in life. It stretches our senses, it challenges our opinions and makes us think of things in different ways and truly enlightens a community. As part of SA 2020, we have a vision for our city that is forged by thousands and thousands of San Antonians from across our community. And that vision is to create in San Antonio a brainpower community that is the liveliest city in the United States. And so last year when Felix and the Office of Cultural Affairs brought forth the proposal for creating a Poet Laureate for San Antonio, it really was an easy decision, something that is in keeping with our goal of enlivening San Antonio, increasing the number of folks who attend arts events, and also helping to create in San Antonio the next generation of poets, of writers, of filmmakers, of creative folks who will stir our soul in the same way. It's something to be nurtured and appreciated and invested in, and that's what this moment is tonight. As Felix mentioned, Poet Laureate Commission was established that consisted of 5 people, and the first, and I want to thank her again, is Rose Catacolos, who is here. She was the honorary chair of it. Thank you. We also had Cyrus Cassells, a professor of English at Texas State University, Valerie Martinez, the executive director of Little Globe, a nonprofit in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Catherine Bowman, the director of creative writing at Indiana University, and Francisco Aragon, a professor at UC Berkeley. We thank them for their great work. So, it was mentioned earlier that Carmen was born on the west side of San Antonio and raised on the west side and represents, I think, the best that our city has to offer. And that's very meaningful for this inaugural Poet Laureate. It's someone who makes us all proud to be San Antonians and can relate completely to the experience of living in our community. And Carmen has established just a wonderful lifetime of contribution in the literary field. 5 books of poetry, 8 children's books. We have a couple of those at home for Karina. 7 television screenplays, 1 nonfiction volume, a collection of short stories, and she's even co-authored a feature-length film. That's a great resume, Carmen, something to be very proud of. She also has twice received the American Library Association Notable Children's Books Award, the Outstanding Young Women of America Award, the UCI National Poetry Prize, the Art of Peace Award by St. Mary's University, and I saw Dr. Cottrell here somewhere, and was once identified as one of the foremost women of the 20th century. In her poem, Marked, from the book, What You Can Do with a Rebozo, Carmen offered the following advice to young women whose voices are often unheard and sometimes stymied or removed from discussion. She wrote, quote, "Never write in pencil, mija. It is for those who would erase. Make your mark proud and open, brave. beauty folded into its imperfection. As San Antonio's first poet laureate, our young men and women will have a local icon with national credibility to look to for guidance, who will inspire them, motivate them, and make us all proud. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome San Antonio's first poet laureate, Dr. Carmen Tafolla. Okay, and I know Councilman Saldana is here. On behalf of the council, we have the official citation from the City of San Antonio. Hereby presents this citation to Carmen Tafolla in recognition of you being selected as San Antonio's inaugural Poet Laureate. This honor acknowledges your immeasurable contributions in arts and education and dedication to bringing the joy of literature into daily life. Your endless determination to fostering a greater cultural understanding throughout the community is worthy of acknowledgement and praise. Now, therefore, I, Julian Castro, Mayor of the City of San Antonio, and on behalf of the City Council, proudly congratulate you on this achievement of serving as an ambassador of the arts and offer best wishes for many years of success. Congratulations. This is better than a Fiesta medal.
Mi pueblo querido, I love you very much. In a village this creative, this artistic, this bubbling over with energy and with dynamic goodwill, I feel nothing but humility and a desire to serve. It is an honor, but it is a very humbling thought to accept this post. I will do my best to bring us all flowing together like this beautiful river, our namesake. It's unthinkable to not thank you as a community and you as a city for this poetic energy, this richness of expression, this unconquerable spirit that San Antonio represents. People like to say that it takes a village to raise a child, and I was planning to talk about how it takes a community to create a poet, but I attended last week's Art of Peace Award, awarded to local poet publisher Bryce Milligan, and there I heard him more eloquently than I could say describe how it takes a village to make anything happen. And I concur, but still, I have a village to thank. In some parts of this nation, communities are trying to erase the history and the contributions of their diverse groups. But here in San Antonio, our mayor, our city leaders, our residents have had the visionary genius to embrace the great diversity of our writers, knowing that in our diversity lies our strength, our wealth, and our future. So I thank, first of all, the city of San Antonio, its leaders, and its people. I also thank family. Familia is what makes everything happen. I have my familia out there. I'm very proud. My husband of almost 33 years now, we count by the month, but it would get boring to you guys if we had to say, well, it's not this many days, who has always supported me and always believed in me and even tolerated those crazy things where you say, yeah, we'll do a supper in a little while. Hold on, I only have another 672 pages to go. my mother, who is the youngest spirit I know, and at age 94, still appreciates poetry, and I still remember her citing the poetry that she had learned in school to me so meaningfully, saying, "In Flanders fields the poppies grow, between the crosses row on row." I also remember her scrimping and saving the $2 a month that it would take to buy a childcraft encyclopedia set, the first volume of which was called Children's Verse. And my children, Mari, Israel, and Ariana, 7, right there in the front row. Also my cousins and my tias, you're out there, I see you. All of my cousins, my first cousins, my second cousins, my third cousins, my fourth cousins, my fifth step-cousin-in-laws, my sixth cousins twice removed, except that in Mexican families we don't remove anybody. Thank you for being here, I know you're here. I want to thank my friends for the tesoros that you are the treasure, the true treasure of life, friends, and my colleagues who are here in force tonight. UTSA is here from the top down, and I thank my colleagues for their support. I also want to thank the university I started at way back in 1973. Now retired President Charles Oestreich was then, I believe, academic dean or some such modest title, and he actually hired a 21-year-old wet behind the ears young woman from the west side of San Antonio as director of the Mexican American Studies Center because he believed that maybe I had some potential to give something to the university. And I thank you for that, Dr. Oestreich. I thank today the educators that are out there and the legislators that are out there and the daily makers of this city who build this city one tortilla at a time, one brick at a time, one smile at a time, one tourist welcomed in and one suitcase carried at a time, because all of you help make this place happen each day, in each word. But I also want to thank the poets. Poets, you know who you are. I'm going to ask you to stand and be recognized. All of you poets, if you're wondering, am I the one she's talking about? Am I one of the poets? If you're wondering if you should stand, stand. The Sun poets, the Jazz poets, Macondo poets, Canto Mundo poets, come on. Young Pegasus, Writers Block, San Antonio Poetry Association, Sananto Cultural Arts, and Flacaso, Wings Press poets, Pecan Grove poets, Trinity University Press poets, Our Lady of the Lake Writing Program, UTSA Writing Program, Alamo Community College poets, St. Mary's Writing Program, rap poets, hip-hop poets. Don't sit down. We're not done yet. Alamo Poets of Texas, San Antonio Writers Forum, Awaken the Sleeping Poet, the San Antonio Poets Association, Gemini Inc., Voices de la Luna, Fresh Take, Under 21 Poetry Slam, I think I got the title wrong, Gallista Gallery Poets, the San Antonio Express News Poetry Column, the Independent Poets, the Closet Poets who haven't told anybody that you're poets, the Cultural Arts Organizations of the city, the Esperanza, the Guadalupe, the Museo Alameda, the SAMA, the Witty, the Children's Museum, all of the places that encourage and support our writers. Please, everyone, let us applaud these people who write and sweat and work hard to express our soul. These people every day struggle to find just the right words to put who we are, who our spirit is, down on paper, and then they go back and they change it and they find a better word, and then they struggle over that word for like 3 hours, and then they trash it and put in a comma. Then they take out the comma. So these are the people, these poets and our artists and our musicians who I've got to tell you, for those of you who think that poets, writers, artists, they're those weird people out there on the edges of society. What do? I'm not really sure. They don't make any money. But I have got to share with you that they are our prophets. And I use the word prophet in the Old Testament sense of the word. A prophet is not somebody who forecasts the future. A prophet is somebody who interprets the present. They help us see where we are and who we are. And I have to thank you all. You might ask, why is poetry so important? We're in a world full of illiteracy, violence, hunger, teen pregnancy, depression, lack of unity, all kinds of problems. Why put emphasis on poetry? Because if poetry does its job right, it reaches the most honest and the most authentic part of our humanity. It helps us understand why we're here and what we need to do. It helps us understand the spirit and the soul of this city. It speaks who we are. It celebrates our strength. It celebrates our uniqueness. And this city is full of rich literary expression. It's everywhere, not just in the formality of our books, not just in our presses, but it's standing at the bus stop and a person who's telling their story, who's trying to figure out what their life is about and is trying to express it just right in the perfect words. It's in the lines of a song. It's in the punchline of the best jokes in this city. People trying to create an expression about what our life is about. It's even in our wonderful bilingual alliteration, like que cool, or bueno, bye. You can count on the fact that the projects I lead here will try and tie all facets of the community together, not just the young, not just the old, not just the highly educated, and not just the people who are on the fringes of our institutions, but we'll try to bring people together so that we can empower each other. I will try and make poetry a two-way street, not a one-way street, not something we give others. I'm here to share elegant poetry with you, and you're there to just sit there and receive it. No, we're here to make it a communication. And I want that two-way street to connect to all the highways, footpaths, and rivers of this great pueblo, connecting the different languages, the cultures, the time periods, and the neighborhoods in one empowering poetic affirmation of our potential and our future. I want these projects to focus not only on sharing poetry with the community, but hearing the poetry that is coming from our community, hearing the voices of San Antonio and allowing our citizens, young and old, to be co-creators in the act and the performance of poetry. Many things are possible if you will stand by my side and help me, if you will suggest to me, if you will correct and amend and elaborate on the ideas that we come up with, that we say, you know, we could have, you remember the bookmobiles? Yeah, I remember the bookmobiles. Why don't we have a poemmobile? It would carry around not only a library of poetry, not only workshops for the young, but a stage, and the kids could get up there and they could perform, and they could have talent contests. We'd have talent contests for all different age groups. We could get everybody involved. This morning, I was with my husband at the barber shop, and his barber starts to quote us an Amado Nervo poem. Llaves viejas, que ya no tienen dientes, ¿por qué les guardo? And he goes on, a barber pulling from the poetry of his soul, from a poem that had reached him. We can Skype poetry into the schools. We can get all of the poets out there involved in sharing with schools, in teaching students. We can create a performance piece about San Antonio, mi pueblo, tu pueblo, so that tourists who come here to see what's San Antonio about hear in the voices of our poets and our people and our young people. what we are about. There's a lot we could talk about, but I'm just one person. And I'm hoping that if I'm lucky, I can work in a midway position between the communities, the poets, and the universities and the cultural arts organizations, and help make these projects happen. I have to tell you that I didn't grow up knowing I was going to be a writer or a poet, despite my mother's poems, despite my tia Esther putting me on her lap and teaching me to declamar in good Spanish style. Rin, rin, rana, cuajo, salió una mañana, muy tierno, muy majo. No salgas, hijito, le dice mamá, pero él hace un gesto y llorando se va, con pantalón corto, corbata a la moda, sombrero insentado, chupando de boda. I didn't even know what chupando de boda meant. But she taught me at age 5 to declamar, to declaim, but I didn't know. I didn't think I could be a writer. I wished maybe for the resources of elsewhere. We didn't even have a library on the west side of San Antonio at that time, so books were not easy to come by. They didn't put a library until I was 11 years old, and my mother would walk 2 miles from our house to the library once a week with me to help me check out the books, and then I had 5 books a week, and I would open them up and I'd read them all the way through, and pretty soon they were done, and I was bored again. And I opened the book, and I looked at it to see if I missed anything, and yeah, I'd missed one page, the one right behind the title page, with all the little fine print, very boring stuff that says things like ISBN:0-0067-2954. But there was one thing on that page that fascinated me, and it was an address. Every single book had an address of where it came from, and it said things like Doubleday, New York, Random House, New York, Little Brown, New York, and I thought, oh, that's where the books come from, and that's where the writers come from. Too bad. If only I had been raised in New York, I might have had something to write about. Instead, I was raised on the west side of San Antonio. I mean, I don't know anything about what to write. You know, we don't have a Statue of Liberty on the west side. We don't have a Central Park on the west side. We don't have any park at all. The park at the end of our block, instead of a park like they had on TV in the neighborhoods, at the end of our block, we had a tortilleria, where an elderly woman would make corn tortillas for a penny each. And she was ancient. She was the oldest person I'd ever seen still breathing. We'd go in, and if you had 5 pennies, you bought 5 tortillas. If you had 20 pennies, you bought 20 tortillas. It was easy. And the little kid from down the block would cut line in front, slap 7 pennies on the counter, and say, "7 tortillas, por favor." And she would start to count out these pennies one by one. She would say, "Uno, dos." So I had a lot of time to stand there and stare. And while I stared at her, I saw that her face was brown and wrinkled. It was so wrinkled, it looked like little brown squares, just like the dirt in San Antonio is in the summertime in the charcos when they're all dried up and they look like little brown squares. And I said, that's it. That's why she and the dirt look alike. They're the same age. She is the oldest breathing creature on the face of this planet. And she said, "Tres." And I looked at her hair, which was so white, and the sunlight that came in through the window that looked like it was sending messages back and forth to her hair. They were talking to each other. They were sending rays or vibrations or something, and her hair would say, "Hey, ¿cómo te va?" And the sun would say, "Okay, la century estaba bien gacho, híjole." You know, they were talking to each other, her hair and the sun. And I said, I know why. Because she and the sun are the same age. She's known him forever. They were kids together, you know. That's what it is. That's why she and the sun communicate so well, because she's the oldest breathing creature in the solar system. And just then she said, "Seis." So I knew we were getting close. And I looked at her hands, and her hands didn't look like they were made out of hens. They looked like they were made out of the corn masa that she'd been working all day long. Her hands looked like masa. And I said, She's older than Mexican food. No civilization would be possible anywhere in the universe without Mexican food. I think she's the oldest breathing creature in the universe. That's what it is. And just then she finished, she said, siete. She stuck the 7 pennies in the pocket of her delantal, and she turned around to yell to the back of the house for some help, for someone to come help her turn the tortillas, because when you're the oldest breathing creature in the universe, you deserve a little respect and a little help. So she turned around. She yelled to the back of the house. It was just a house with a front counter where they sold tortillas and they lived in the back. And she yelled, Mama. And her mother came out and helped her turn those tortillas. And I thought I had nothing to write about. And the years passed, and I did write. And I wrote some more, and I wrote some more. And then I found out that there was one little poem that was published more than anything else. It wasn't about New York or Central Park or the Statue of Liberty. It was a little tiny poem about the little old lady in the tortilleria and her mother. So when we think about that, we realize that our best doesn't come from being someone else or growing up somewhere else or trying to imitate somebody else. It comes from being who we really are, and who San Antonio really is special. I'd like to share with you 3 poems. For those of you who are scared that poetry is this weird, crazy thing, you almost got out free. But I'm sharing 3 because they come from different times in our history and different times in my history. One I wrote in the 1970s, and it was during a time period when San Antonio was really struggling to break out of this image that people had of it as a lazy little town. Breaking out of those stereotypes that belittled us and made us quaint or exotic or I'm not sure what. But the poem came out, very short little thing. San Antonio, they called you lazy. They saw your silent, subtle, screaming eyes and called you lazy. They saw your lean, bronzed workmaid's arms and called you lazy. They saw your century's secret sweet night song and called you lazy. San Antonio, they saw your sky birth and sun altar, your corn dirt soul and mute bell toll, your river ripple heart soft with life, your ancient shawl of sigh on strife, and didn't see. San Antonio, they called you lazy. The second poem comes from the 1990s, in a time period when we were beginning to recognize as a city that we are all connected, that we all come together, that we are our strongest when we are unified. And it's called This River Here. This river here is full of me and mine. This river here is full of you and yours. Right here, or maybe a little farther down, my great-grandmother washed the dirt out of her family's clothes, soaking them, scrubbing them, bringing them up clean. Right here, or maybe a little farther down, my grandpa washed the sins out of his congregation's souls, baptizing them, scrubbing them, bringing them up clean. Right here, or maybe a little farther down, my great-great-grandma froze with fear as she glimpsed between the lean, dark trees a lean, dark Indian peering at her. She ran home screaming, "Ay, los indios! Ahí vienen los indios!" as he threw pebbles at her, laughing. Till one day she got mad and stayed and threw pebbles right back at him. After they got married, they built their house right here, or maybe a little farther down. Right here, my father gathered mesquite beans and wild berries, working with a passion during the Depression. His eager sweat poured off and mixed so easily with the water of this river here. Right here, we'd pour out picnics and childhood's blood from dirty scrapes on dirty knees and every generation's first-hand stories of the weeping lady La Llorona haunting the river every night, crying, "Ay, mis hijos." It happened right here. The fear dripped off our skin and the blood dripped off our scrapes, and they mixed with the river water right here. Right here, the stories and the stillness of those gone before us haunt us still, now grown, our scrapes in different places, the voices of those now dead, quieter, but not too far away. Right here we were married, you and I, and the music filled the air, danced in, dipped in, mixed in with the river water, dirt and sins, fear and anger, sweat and tears, love and music, blood and memories. It was right here, and right here we stand, washing clean our memories, baptizing our hearts, gathering past and present, dancing to the flow we find right here, or maybe a little farther down. And I'd like to close my comments this evening, although poets, writers, they never close their mouths, so it'll keep going and going and going. I'd like to close with the third poem, which is dedicated to our children, to our future, to little Maria and Diego and Bella and Marco and Ariana. I see more of you out there in the back. This is to you, because you are the future. You are our leaders. You are the people who will save us, who will help us become who we can really become. And this poem represents this decade, just written a couple of months ago. And it's about recognizing that no matter how much we build and how much we learn and how much we grow, our strength comes in remembering who we are and where we come from. And to quote the poem, trusting in our river roots. San Antonio is a young Yanawana woman, all spirit, strength, and spark. Her skin a cinnamon summer, an autumn pecan, her eyes steady stars in October's dark sky, arms graceful as weeping willow branches, she unravels her hair, that long dark wave of a river, winding, winding right through our hearts, pouring clear through our dreams, and that's when she sings, in ancient rhythms of her native tongue, unconquered tunes twirled like mesquite bark, gnarled like the centuries of river oak, shaping the gentleness of buffalo grass, the wildness of wind, a melody trickling cool as river water. San Antonio is a young, strong Yanawana woman who learned Spanish, and then English, and then Tex-Mex, or German, Vietnamese, Czech, Greek, Karen, and 100 other flowing tongues to lull the child to sleep. San Antonio is a young, strong, smart Yanawana woman who sings, chants, calls, declaims, exalts in all the languages of her embroidered rebozo, bordado con colors and cultures, but never once forgets the hum and the rumble of her still growing, reaching river roots. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carmen. One last token of our appreciation, and obviously since we have you for 2 years sequestered with the city and with a strong partnership, we wanted, the office wanted to present you with a very, very special pen to keep you writing. We were going to give you a new laptop, but I think a pen will do. Thank you. Now, I know that Carmen is going to take a few moments to take some official pictures with the mayor. But before we let you go, I want to remind you that we do have a reception upstairs, so please join us upstairs after this ceremony. And also don't forget that it is National Poetry Month, and we do have some calendars available. I don't know, Sebastian, where they're upstairs. Take one with you and please attend all the events. Again, thank you and enjoy the reception upstairs. Thank you.